and welcome back to the Move IQ podcast. So this is where we break everything down that you need to know about buying, selling and moving home. I am Nicola.
Thanks, Nicola. And I'm Lexi. And today we're talking about one of the biggest challenges when it comes to buying a property or searching for a property. And that is, how do you give yourself the best chance of success?
Yes.
To get your offer agreed.
Now,
and to get that property.
To answer that question, we are joined by Gemma Dawe, who's an experienced buying agent who's helped countless people navigate the property market. So, Gemma, you're going to be sharing some serious insider info for us today.
Yes, indeed.
Very excited.
Very excited. So I guess whether people are first-time buyers or if they've actually been through this process before, Gemma's going to drop some golden nuggets. So Gemma,
why does golden as the situation here today?
She's already dropped one.
She's getting sunshine. It's fine.
Gemma, would you like to introduce yourself?
So I'm a buying agent, used to be an estate agent, which is really important. You've been on both sides of the fence. So that helps me advise people.
I have a question.
Already, straight in.
I mean, I'm sat with two property experts here, but I'm not the property expert. What's the difference between an estate agent and a buying agent?
So a buying agent supports the buyer. So the buyer is able to have a dialogue with me that's closed, and we will choose what to tell the estate agent. So a very strategic way of getting the buyer what they want and need, basically, and advising them in the background.
So you basically work for the buyer,
yeah,
or for someone that's looking to rent. You're on their side, whereas the estate agent, remember, is being employed by the vendor or the landlord. So yeah.
I understand. Right. Okay. Thank you for that. But what's the market looking like right now?
So I would agree with probably most people you have spoken to already, and that it's softening.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a buyer's market now, which is fantastic for buyers. Not so great for vendors, but it gives us more choice, and it means that negotiations are more fruitful, and you've just got to be quite strategic about the conversations that you have.
Absolutely. I've just done like a 23-week renovation on my house, and I wish that I had some dollar left over, or that I had spent it instead on an investment property or buying another home, because I think there's some good deals that are out there at the minute. I think we're seeing, I don't know if it's the same in the Lake District, but in London, we're seeing so many landlords sell up, unfortunately. And that often means that it's stock that's not, it's got a bit in it. There's a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a rise in up near the Lake District. There's a lot of holiday lets and investment properties.
Of course.
And there's actually been a big rebalancing of that whole market because of, the amount of houses that come to market. It's the supply and demand.
Yeah.
So the supply is quite high at the moment and the demand is lower. Therefore, we're doing some great negotiations for clients, saving them quite a lot of money. And so you're quite right, you can put that into the next kitchen, you can put that into the next property, or you can put that into your long-term renovation options.
Absolutely. And your clients that come to you, are they a mix of people that are looking for a residential home, or are they investors, like you said, with the short let market up there, or holiday let?
I personally deal with a lot of relocations. So I deal with a lot of people who are moving either from out of the country back to the UK, or they're moving themselves from south to north. So my specific area is the Cumbria, Yorkshire Dales and the Lake District. So I'm used to rural property and all of the quirks that come with that. But I did 10 years in a estate agency before that. So I've dealt with everything right from the bottom, right the way to the top. So, £100,000 house right the way up to £10 million house.
Ooh.
So
you've done it all in between.
All of the above.
Yeah, you've probably seen it all. Yeah, it is. It always is, isn't it?
What are like the most common mistakes that people make when they're just about to buy a home?
I think if you're doing it for the first time, or you're in the sort of your second move, I think it's going in too quick. Not necessarily understanding what's going on around you, and maybe getting a little bit whipped up in the emotion that comes with moving. So I think that's really easy. I did it myself when I bought my first house. We went straight in there, and there's things that I learned from that actually in my own journey that I would say I'd steer people away from. So
emotion's the hard part, though. That's what it is. Because if you see a house online and you're like, I absolutely love this place, you fall in love with it, your heart falls in love with that house.
Yeah.
It's so easy to just go, take everything. I will take everything. I want this. I want it now.
And you tell the estate agent everything.
Yeah.
And they know your pet dog's name.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. Just take a step back. And there's ways to obviously as a buying agent, I'm taking you back a little bit to say, okay, let's work this through. Let's engage the head part of this. Can we afford it? Is it the right move for us? What's your personal finances like? Now, I don't deal with that, but because of my role, I can put people in touch with these people and go through a progress to say, get everything in line first. Look at your finances. I'll never forget a few years ago when I was an estate agent, I dealt with a couple who were trying to buy a 50% ownership property. And one of the problems they had is that they had a loan on a car, which meant that they couldn't then get the house. Now, if they'd have paid the loan off on the car, so that's why the financial advice is really important to get. And I always say, get your ducks in a row. And that's my favourite saying. Get your ducks in a row. So if you go and get your financial advisor to look at your situation before you go into this, it might be that it's better to wait 6 months. It might be it's better to pay that off in advance before you apply for your mortgage. There's so many things that you need to consider before you even start looking at houses.
Well, that was what I was going to ask. What should be the first thing you should think about? Because the hard part
Getting
is
the ducks in a row.
Get your ducks in a row. But sometimes your heart does rule your head, because you do go, right, okay, we're thinking about moving. I'm going to start looking at houses. Yeah. And then you start looking at houses, fall in love with the place. And then you're like, well, we're not ready to move yet because we haven't figured this out, figured that out.
Yeah.
And now you've already fallen in love with a house that you know you can't get. And then you're heartbroken.
Yeah.
And then it's rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
It is. And I think the other thing is if you're doing a second move, then you really need to go and get your house valued. And you see, the margins can be so small between the next house and what you're wanting to buy, or the negotiations don't quite work out. You need to know what that is. So I always say to everybody, get 3 valuations done. So you know then, okay, if they're all similar, you know what your house is worth. If they're all varying, then you really need to sort of work out, okay, what can we afford? Where should we pitch it at? Is that too high? And be really realistic about that side of things. Then look at your mortgage and piece it all together, because obviously you need to be in the best position you possibly can be to get your offer accepted in the first place.
Guys, yes, I was just going to say this, and that's one of those massive perks of using someone like yourself and using a property finder or a buying agent is that you're holding their hand throughout the whole thing. You're not just helping find a property and being like, hey guys, I've got 10 to show you. You're actually being like, no, I want to make sure that you are the person that gets your offer accepted. So before we even start looking, let's get in a situation where you're ready and we can put our best foot forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to make sure that when you are ready to put the offer forwards, that actually you've got your decision in principle ready, which is from your mortgage lender, advisor, whoever. And that you have your deposit in place, you've got your ID in place, because these are all things that you're going to be asked for. And if you don't actually have this already and there are other people interested in that property, you're going to be at the bottom of the pile because you just weren't ready to.
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely. No, I was going to give the example of our own house purchase. So when we bought a property beginning of this year, it was off market and we did not want it to go to market. So we did exactly what you're saying. And when we put our offer forward, I attached evidence of why I've put it, because we went in under the asking price, why I've done that, why I feel like it's worth that value, attached evidence. I was like, here's the details of our mortgage broker, here's the details of our solicitor, here's proof of funds.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be asked for it anyway. So you might as well give it up front.
Yeah, and people are really nervous about that. But you raise a good point there. Off-market properties, now that's one thing that I would say all buying agents in the UK will tell you they have access to, because it's much easier for an estate agent to ring me than it is to ring the 1,000 people that are on their mailing list.
Yep.
yes.
So there will be different people in the UK that act as buying agents that will have access to properties that you're not aware of. And it's through lots of different reasons why that happens. But again, you raised a point there about you negotiating and what you present forwards. It's all about the personality of the vendor as well. And it's asking the questions when you're actually viewing these properties to make sure that you're aware of the circumstances of the person that's selling and why. Because you can go in like a bull in a china shop, can't you? And sometimes that's appropriate, but then there's times that it's not. And if someone's separating and it's a really delicate situation and it's very emotionally charged, you need to be very sympathetic, you need to offer lots of flexibility, and you need to pinpoint the points that are their pain points and give them resolutions to that in you as a buyer. So there's a whole conversation there that people don't even think of.
Yeah. And also, I guess, having those conversations as well, if it's sensitive for a vendor, having you as that buffer in between actually makes, you know, they're not then going to look at the buyers in a different light because they're asking all these questions. It's coming from a professional like yourself, and they don't have to feel awkward asking these questions.
And you know, we have very different conversations as buying agents with estate agents. So we'd be probably a bit more.
Do you get along?
Oh yeah,
you right? Because we're working to the same goal.
We're all trying to do the same thing, and a lot of people, there is a bit of a misconception that
that's how I see it.
Absolutely no, but it's a valid point. I would say it's all about relationships. So for me, I buy a lot of properties off the agents that exist in our area. But I equally send a lot of work to them as well, because if we've got somebody who instructs me and they want me to hold the hand through the whole process, I'm going to say, I really need you to use an agent to sell your property. And therefore, actually, these are the people that you should have a chat with. So I will send them to 3 different agents and obviously get their valuations and work out. And then I'll be working quite closely with that agent. So yeah, it's mutually beneficial. And obviously, you're supporting the buyer. So therefore, these transactions are more likely to go through to completion as well, because I'm there to answer any of them questions that a buyer's going to have or maybe struggle with. So I know what's expected because I've been on the other side
of it. Yeah. Okay, so we've got our ducks in a row, like you said. Ducks in a row. And then it comes to the exciting part, which is the search, right? And actually going out and viewing things. I guess slightly before you get to that part, to give advice to people that maybe are trying to do this on their own. How do they decide on area? Like, you're working with a lot of people that are new to the Lake District. So how do you
quote Phil Spencer?
Location.
I was just going to say, so whenever anybody doesn't understand what job I do, I say, I do what Phil and Kirsty do. Phil, I'm a full-time Phil Spencer.
All rolled into one. I love it.
So I think my advice on that would be that there are multiple ways of researching areas, and you know, obviously boots on the ground is a big thing. Go and visit the area at different times of day. And make sure that you know what's going on. What's the scene like? Are there lots of coffee shops? Where, you know, what's it like at night time? But also there are things like, you've obviously got your reports that you do as well, which are fantastic. So if you do find a house, you can download that report. It tells you so much. It tells you about what planning, you know, is the neighbour, for instance, got a massive extension due to be done, and you're never going to know that.
And the agent's not going to tell you that, are they, necessarily?
Not necessarily.
They don't have to.
No, they don't. No. So if you look at that report, it tells you everything that you need to know.
That's exactly what we did when we bought our house a couple of years ago. We walked there one morning to go and see if there was coffee. Then one afternoon we took the dogs there and we just walked around all the little streets and stuff and kind of got to know the area, because we were like, I kind of like this little villagey vibe. Let's see what it's like. And we went there a few different times at different days to see what it was like. And just fell in love with the place. We were like, yes, to all of the above. We love, we will buy, take our money now.
This is your new home. Absolutely. And but that's exactly like you were saying, like not rushing into things. So we've just recorded a whole episode on red flags and things to look out for. So I guess for someone that's employing you, that's exactly your job. They're running around having a lovely time thinking, I really like this place. But you're there to spot these red flags that you go in wearing rose tinted glasses because you're too excited about moving home. And you're like, it's too, I love it. I love it. But sometimes we need to be brought back to ground, right? So what red flags are you often looking out for?
I mean, so if you've got a buying agent with you, they are there in the viewing to you know, highlight the things that you're maybe not seeing. But if you're going it alone, then obviously some of the things that you need to look out for are minimal details on a brochure. That would highlight something amiss to me. Minimal photographs. So I would be visiting, you know, a lot of people say about drive-bys. Do a drive-by and go and see what it looks like before you book the viewing. You don't necessarily want to waste your own time, but there might be a reason for that. Ask the estate agent questions, you know, that you might it might provoke with you. Red flags for me are if there's things going on around the property that you might not necessarily be highlighted to you again. So all of the, you know, visiting the areas and looking at reports and things like that are going to highlight those for you if it's a house that's then of interest to you.
Okay, right. So we've had a look at the area. we found a house, we've fallen in love with the house. We now go, right, we want to put an offer on this house. What makes a strong offer?
So you've got to have your ducks in a row.
Yeah, right. Okay. The ducks.
Yeah,
you need to duck.
You've got to have your paperwork in place. So decision in principle, if you've got a mortgage, you need to have your deposit paperwork in place, ready to put that offer forwards. You need to, I would always say, know who your solicitor's going to be. Have that conversation, because again, there's a whole episode there for you on making sure that you're working with the right people in the mortgage world, financial world, in the solicitors world.
Having your dream team.
Yeah, looking after you in your best interest, and also being good at communicating and swift at acting, because that is the difference between this getting to exchange of contracts.
Yeah.
So I would say you need to have all of your paperwork ready. You need to give the estate agent a positive vibe that you're going to be able to get to exchange. So there is a fine balancing act there about asking questions and the types of questions that you would ask, but also presenting yourself when you're actually putting that offer forwards. So having your documentation in place, telling them who the solicitor is that you're going to use, asking them who is it you work well with, because that's important. Because if they give you a good answer, but you have to bear in mind you need to do your research into this, because there's all sorts of things with commission and things like that, and you need to make sure that this person who they're recommending is good and speak to them. So this is why you should do all that research well before you even get to the point of putting an offer in on something, so you know who your dream team is behind the scenes. Surveyors, you need to speak to them as well. When you present the offer, you need to, I would say, be as flexible as you can be. But if you've asked the right questions at the beginning, you'll know the situation of the vendor.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to say, okay, well, they found another home, we can act quickly.
Yeah.
Or they're separating, we can offer them the flexibility that they need to be able to move forward.
That's so true. Yeah. So, finding out why they want to sell, and how you can position yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that they're like, there is no question, we are picking you because you solve all our problems.
Yes. Yeah. Try and make it as easy as possible for them to accept your offer.
But then how do you kind of manage that without then overpaying? So you might just end up going, yeah, but this is my dream home. I know I can play ball, I can do this, I can do that. An estate agent might end up going, oh, well, they're clearly very keen on this house. Let's see if we can put the money up a little bit.
So you've got to ask the questions to understand what the situation is surrounding this house. Is there anybody else? You know, how many offers have you got? Now, they should answer that question. So if you've got all of this information, how many viewings have they had? Is there any other interested parties? Are you offering against somebody else? Your situation has to then change if you are in a bidding war or a best and final situation. Then your strategy has to change completely. But if it is just you, then you need to do your research and back it up with, you know, like you say, the reports and things like that. You can also look at the square footage of properties, and you can find that on the EPCs.
Yep.
And then look at what other properties have sold in that area and look at their square footage. Now, if you divide that, you will work out how much price per square footage and work out, okay, well, what am I paying? Am I overpaying? So now there's multiple ways of doing this, and I wouldn't say you can use it alongside going on an online portal, but that only really works if you're looking at mid-terrace properties where they're all carbon copies,
fairly comparable.
Yeah, if you're looking at, say, something with me is very, very different, because I work in a very rural area, and there is not a carbon copy of each of those houses, so that sort of goes out the window really, and then experience really comes into it. But if you are a first-time buyer, or you're in that early moving cycle of your life, I would say use that as a way of putting a benchmark to say, right, okay, that over the last 3 years, even 2 probably now because the market's changed, but what's everybody paying? What's the square footage? Let's work it out. What are the advantages of this property? And then I would also throw into the mix now that building costs have gone up in the UK, as a lot of people know. So there is a factor that I would go into where if the house doesn't need any work doing to it, there is the stress factor. These are all non-monetary things to take into consideration. The stress factor, the time it's going to take the tradesperson to come and do something. Would I be happy just overpaying a little bit more for the fact that I'm not going to have to be in a building site for the next 12 months? For me, it would be a yes. Now, if you're a tradesperson buying another home, that's a completely different.
Yeah.
But actually, I think that there's all sorts of different things that are non-monetary that you can factor into the conversation that will result in the answer to what is overpaying for you.
Yeah, totally get that. And you mentioned there about if there's multiple bids, there's other people that have offered on a property, particularly if it's a bit of a gem, like it's going to have that interest on it, isn't it? And you mentioned acting quickly on something, but how you said changing the strategy, because it becomes a different ball game then, doesn't it? So what would you be doing if there are multiple bids for your client on a property?
Yeah, so it's slightly different if you're working with a buying agent. A buying agent, the estate agent will take confidence from the fact that you're working with a professional. Yeah, and they will also look at you as you've paid that person a retainer fee basically to work.
Like you are committed to finding a home.
Committed. So there is an added layer of security with someone from an estate agent's point of view that is using a buying agent.
Yeah, you're not a tire kicker, right?
No. But if you are, again, going it alone and you're not in that situation, I would say it's about understanding the motives of the vendor again and working out how many people are we up against at this moment in time. Again, the estate agent shouldn't lie to you about this. If there have been 2 other offers and it's you against 2 other people, or if it's you against 10 other people, obviously that's what you've got to work out. Then it's a case of actually showing in your presentation of your best and final, this is my solicitor, this is my surveyor, I'm going to do this in 24 hours. These are the things and this is what I'm willing to offer. For instance, we had one where there was a property that needed emptying. It was somebody that had passed away and the whole family were going to have to deal with it, and they didn't live in the area. We offered to empty the property. So that's not a monetary thing, but actually you've made someone's life a lot easier. So there's little things like that you can factor in. You can also mention, have you got a connection to the area? Did your mum live on that street? Are you from that area originally? Make these points known to the estate agent, because they are important to the person who's sitting at the end of the day working out, well, which one should I accept?
Exactly like you mentioned at the beginning, that emotion, as much as it's for the buyer's side loving the property, for the vendor, you obviously, if you can get an emotional connection with them, often that is a huge link, isn't it? And where do you stand on, you mentioned those like little points to put forward, where do you stand on putting forward like a bio? So for my clients, I do a lot of relocation work, but rentals in London, and if we're in a situation or I really feel like I need to sell my client, we'll write a little bio. If they've got a pet, we send a little picture. Like we do. I know. I mean, it is a bit OTT, but sometimes I'm like, we've got to give all we've got.
In a fast-paced market like London, where you've been talking about, absolutely, you've got to put your best foot forward. And rental market all over the UK is so hot all the time. With us, it's very different, and we can have 10 to 15 applicants per house. So you've really got to.
But it does end up, if you're the person selling your home and you've fallen in love with that home and you're moving for whatever reason, you do want to sell it to someone that will love that house just as much as you did. You know that as soon as you move out, you want to leave them a bottle of bubbly in the fridge and say, please enjoy this house as much as we did. So you do end up choosing buyers on a personal level if you did love that property so much.
Because you can always picture them living there, living their best life in your house.
But the thing is it's not always smooth sailing. No. Sometimes there are hurdles along the way, and that can become quite stressful. So do you have any tips and advice of how to deal with that?
Perseverance is a word that I use very often on a daily basis. So I would say perseverance really is key. Our UK, you both agree with me, the UK property system is very, very difficult to navigate.
Yes.
And it takes so long. I mean, we're in the Lakes, we're about 10 to 12 weeks to go from having your offer accepted through to completion or exchange. So I find that actually it is perseverance sometimes, but also knowing getting the right advice from the solicitors, etc., to make sure that actually it is the right home for you. And where is your line? If it's just that it's taking too long and you're getting a little bit tired of the process, it's becoming frustrating, I would say that is quite natural, because it is quite drawn out. You sort of go into it thinking, yes, I found the perfect home for me, and then it just takes so long to get there. And obviously nowadays everything is highlighted to to make you aware of that what you're getting into, you need to be aware of it. So I think, it can be quite a daunting process to go through.
And overwhelming, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And what about kind of a worst case scenario? I guess you also advise your clients, on a positive note, but when it's time to walk away as well.
Yeah, you have to know when to draw the line. And obviously there's things that happen, and it can be for all sorts of different reasons. And you've just got to have a strategy. I think that's the difference between going it alone and obviously having a buying agent. You can pick the phone up to me and pour your heart out, say whatever you need to, and I'm going to steer you in the right direction, or I'm going to tell you what I think. And you can't always do that when you're...
You can't phone up and cry to an estate agent.
It doesn't feel right. There are some very good estate agents out there that, that absolutely will.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you always have to just keep in the back of your mind that they are working for the vendor.
Yeah.
And sometimes, for me, it is about just steering you in the right direction. And if I do agree and think, we are getting to a point here where we're not progressing, or something's not quite right, or we feel that something's going on in the background, then I will intervene, and we'll ask the agent directly and maybe apply pressure if we feel that that's what needs to happen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very handy.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell then, let's quickly sum up why the positives and the benefits of using a buying agent or a property finder, because I know we've just discussed them, but if we go through them, other than emotional support, obviously, because in the UK, it's, not a lot of people have a buying agent. It's a very unfamiliar thing to people. And yet it always surprises me, being in the industry as well. We're spending the most amount of money
We didn't have
ever spent.
No, it was an option.
It's not really that common. And yet in other countries, that's how you work. Yeah, it's the norm. Australia, the States, like, you go through a buying agent. You have your buying agent, you have your selling agent. Like, that's just how it works. So for people that maybe aren't familiar with a buying agent, just quickly rattle off those benefits of working before.
So it's the independent side of things. So obviously you can have a conversation with an expert who's been, usually, most of the buying agents that I am aware of and work with, I would say they know their field, they know their area. For me, I've been an estate agent before. So a lot of the buying agents in the UK have experience from the other side of this, or they've been involved in property for quite a long time. That's really important to know that. But it's because they are an expert in their area. So they're in that market all the time. They're negotiating all the time. So you might only move twice, 3 times in your lifetime, say. Whereas we're putting offers in probably once a week. Obviously there'll be buying agents that do a lot more than that. So you're getting an idea of constant negotiations, you're building relationships with the estate agents that they can't really have the opportunity to do. But not just that, it's working with developers, solicitors, people who are dealing with probate applications, so you know what's about to come to market. It's knowing the surveyors that are going to be quick and that are thorough. Mortgage advisors that are independent and they can look at the whole of the market. It's all sorts of things like that, really. But I would say actually getting the offer accepted is the easy bit. The moving to the next stage,
everything else,
yes,
is a bit of a game, isn't it? Absolutely.
If you are feeling overwhelmed by everything, there is so much to look at via the Move IQ website. So there's loads of advice and resources where you can go and have a look via Move IQ to get every little bit of advice that you could possibly need. But if you could give one bit of advice, just your main bit of advice to someone buying a house right now, what would be your main thing?
My thing it's slightly controversial, I would say, and people feel a little bit nervous about doing it. But if you've seen a house that you like, go knock on the neighbour's door.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And you know who they are?
Yeah, you do, because you learn a lot from that interaction.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I knocked on one years ago that was for myself, and we decided not to buy that house because, unfortunately, the lady that answered wasn't very hospitable to us, and we worked out very quickly that there were some issues with the boundaries.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I would say that, as well as going, if you don't want to do that and that's, too nerve-wracking for you, do exactly what we were saying before. Go and visit the house at different times of day, actually viewing it, but also just popping by, walking past, go at night, go at the weekend.
Yeah.
This is before you exchange. So don't let that delay you putting the offer in on, if you're in a situation where you need to get on with that. But going back time and time again really will you might even bump into the neighbours because you're walking past.
Exactly. That's what I found where we moved to. Like, if people don't feel quite confident enough to go knock on the door, if you spend enough time hanging around there, a neighbour's going to be like, hey, what are you doing?
Absolutely.
And that's a great in for a conversation anyway.
Just say to them, look, I've put an offering on next door. I'm hoping to be a neighbour. I just wanted to introduce myself.
Yeah.
And the interaction that you have will tell you a lot.
I would never think of that. I'd obviously think about walking around the area, but like knocking on the neighbour, I don't know if I'd be able to do.
I think you could, because I always think saying hello. It's the same rule of thumb across all property, in my opinion. If you don't ask, you don't get. The worst they can do is shut the door in your face.
Gemma, thank you very much for today.
You're very welcome.
I'm assuming everyone else that's watching and listening have learned a lot. I've learned a lot.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely loved it. It's so much insight and really getting an understanding of using a buying agent. Like, I think everyone should use a buying agent, but it's not possible for everyone. No, I totally get it. Yeah. And that's actually quite a nice question that we might just throw in here right at the end. How does it work? Like, how do you work? Are you paid directly by your clients? Is it like, do you take a percentage?
Yeah. So I think there is a bit of confusion because of the US where you split commissions. That is not what happens in the UK. Yep. We've kind of got our own system here. So a buying agent is just paid by the buyer.
Yep.
And you usually pay a retainer fee up front. This is the model that most buying agents work to, and then they are paid a percentage of the fee once you have exchanged contracts.
Yep, all by the buyer, all by your client.
Yeah, so it's very independent. I think that is a much better way of doing it as well. There's no confusion then.
Yes, next time I move, that's probably what I'm going to be doing, because it's just going to save on stress, isn't it?
Well, it absolutely does, and potentially on price as well, like when it comes down to negotiation. But yes, certainly stress.
If I'm moving up to the Lake District, I'll give you a call.
There you go.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. And actually, we've become Insta friends now.
We have.
Follow Gemma at Lake_district_relocation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Gemma. No, you're very welcome.
And thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.